Now, having explained that uh, for one to proceed to the next level in engineering profession in the UK, you join a society. The society mentors you and prepares you for licensing. This upon acquiring the required uh, upon upon acquiring the required uh, upon acquiring the required skills, the engineering society sends your name to the Engineering Council of UK, and then Engineering Council of UK will now take the necessary action that is required for you to receive your practice license or certificate. And contradictorily, in Kenya, we have a scenario whereby it's a bit complex. With all due respect to the pioneers and the petitioner of the Engineers Act of 2011, I think they wanted to have a scenario whereby Engineers Act is in line more or less with what is in the UK or in South Africa. Unfortunately, the wording in the Act is has caused chaos, whereby for one to be a professional engineer in Kenya, one is forced to join IEK, and there was a ruling whereby IEK was declared the Engineering Society of Kenya. We have other societies of engineering, so because of the ruling, the court ruling that declared IEK as the sole professional engineering society, so members are now, or rather members should and must join IEK for them to receive IEK professional engineering license. There's one thing we need to draw a line here. IEK is a professional society that should fight for the welfare of engineers. And the regulator, the engineering practice regulator is Engineers Board of Kenya, which currently is headed by Engineer Mogera, assisted by several members who are very professional, and the CEO and the registrar at IEBK is Engineer Musuni. So, in my humble opinion, there have been scenarios whereby if someone is seeking a job employment at any government office or any engineering parastatal or any other body where an engineer can be employed in Kenya, so long as it's a government body, they insist on one to have engineers certificate and a membership at IEK. Going by the Act, it is my humble opinion that it is not a must for graduate engineers to be members of IEK. That's why there is that option for members to only have corporate membership for them to receive professional license. This is totally wrong. This assumption, I believe, is what has made many graduate engineers not to join IEK. A good example is if you look at the membership at the Engineers Board of Kenya's website, you find that the numbers have surpassed, we have almost 20,000 engineers, graduate engineers who are outside, who are not registered at IEK. The numbers are wanting. Members should be able graduate institute, the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, should be able to fight for the welfare and make the young graduate engineers who are coming in to understand the meaning and the reason as to why they should join IEK. IEK should fight for the benefit of graduate engineers. So far, what we've been seeing is somehow lack of structures at IEK. I don't think we should be in the hands of individuals relying on the goodwill of the person holding the office at IEK. We should fight for professional, interdependent structures within IEK. Why am I saying this? In the last World Engineering Day that was started with the proceeding from Nairobi University and walked around Nairobi streets and came back, and then there was a meeting in the Nairobi University halls. I was disappointed, and I believe many engineers were disappointed. We had an engineering event, and the social media, the communication structure of Engineers Board of Kenya and Engineering Society of Kenya, which is IEK, was nowhere to be seen. We had a scenario, people going out and people start talking, but we are not there in Twitter, we are not there in Facebook, we are not there anywhere. So being disappointed in that way, when I spoke later on with one prominent engineer at IEK and asked why is it that the Twitter handler is off and yet we have an engineering event, that is when after 6 p.m. I happen now to start seeing pictures being posted here and there. And funny enough, you would be surprised when you hear members of the public read what members of the public are saying. Somebody in the street assumed that it was a procession from a BBI. Like, oh, I saw people walking in the street with yellow vests and some helmets, and I ran away and thought that this is a BBI procession. This is totally wrong. IEK should have structures that should be able to handle all type of events and all type of conferences and to educate the public. Otherwise, I will continue talking about this more in the next session. For now, I have seen our guest for today arriving. He is now here with us, and I would like to leave the podium for him to introduce him, and then we will take it from there. Good afternoon, engineer. Or rather, good evening. Engineer Sam?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear, engineer. Good
I'm
evening.
trying to just join. Sorry, I've just left a meeting. So I'm trying to just start my video, and I hope I'm loud and clear.
You are loud and clear. Just kindly position your camera properly.
How is that for you?
That is fine. That is fantastic. That is fantastic. Now, engineer, I know we might have not met, but my name is Ndolo, and my co-host is Diana. She will join us shortly.
Right.
So we would like to have you give us your. You received an email from us, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So you will try and follow that and give us your brief, the introduction. Who are you? Where you've
Mhm,
been? What you've been doing? If you have been in
mhm.
IEK, what you have done? What have you achieved? And then we will start another session for questions. So you can have like 10 minutes to do that.
Okay, very well. So we're just about to begin. I just want to confirm we're ready.
We are ready, engineer.
Okay. Just give me 1 second to just prepare because I've just left a meeting
Okay.
and I just need to. Okay. So good evening. My name is Engineer Anthony Sang. My background is mechanical engineering. Just a brief about myself. I'm a professional mechanical engineer, and I have had about 21 years experience in industry. My major experience is basically in oil and gas, having worked for Kenya Pipeline, and currently working with KOTDA, that is Kenya Konza Technopolis Development Authority, as a construction manager. My brief history is that I've worked in operations and in business development in the petroleum sector, having worked in Mombasa and also in Nairobi. And my last call of duty was in Eldoret at KPC, managing Kenya KPC Depot Eldoret. So briefly, having all that experience, I can say that I've been able to engage with IEK for over 10 years since I joined the fraternity. And I've been privileged to have been part of the council of IEK. The current term that I'm serving, I've been the chair of Advocacy, Publicity and Journal Committee. But previously, the term before the last, I was in the council. And during that tenure, when Engineer Ruben Koske was our president of IEK, I took part in one of the greatest reforms that have led to what IEK is today. What I can clearly say is that from the very onset, that when we talked about constitutional reform, I took an active role working very closely with Engineer Nathaniel Matalanga and the council that was there, basically to address the issue of constitution of IEK. And I'm very proud to say that so much has been said within the engineering fraternity about the current constitution that was made, that has brought the changes that we now enjoy and we hope to improve further. But the backstory about it is, personally, I took my own initiative with Nathaniel to actually go and publish the current constitution that we are all enjoying. All these products that you can see, all this design work and the editing of this particular constitution that we so gladly talk about, which I believe Nathaniel must have said, which was not paid by the council. I took personal efforts in design and production of this particular material for all engineers of Kenya. That was my greatest contribution before we left the following the bundled elections that took us to court and etc. But at least during that time in council, this is one product that I'm very proud of. Having worked with the designers, having worked with the publisher, having made sure that it reached each and every member. And that was a dedication that I gave to ensure that our institution has something that we are clamoring for. Not much has been said about it, but I'm very proud when I hold this particular document. It's part of the great history. Now, A lot has been said about my contribution in APJ, some history about it and what we achieved. One of the key things I'd like to talk about is the journal, which is Kenya Engineer. One of the key things that I did during my tenure and with our team, the APJ committee, what we did was, first of all, was to get the copyright from KECOBO, Kenya Copyright Board, for IEK. There's been a long-standing challenge that we've had with that particular journal, which consumed most of the time for our institution, for we do not have any contractual agreement with our publisher on the same. But I can say that it has taken a long time to just ensure that we have that thing in order. Nevertheless, we've still had challenges, I must admit, with our current publisher on some contractual issues and deliverables, especially due to the fact that none of our members, even in this past year, has ever received a copy. And those are some of the challenges which we've faced. However, what I can say is that in terms of being instrumental as an engineer with regard to the current office that IEK is operating under, the first CEO that was recruited, I was part of that council that brought institutional structure into this institution that we now enjoy. And I can tell you it was not an easy journey. Nevertheless, where we are today, I can appreciate and say that we've done quite a bit of work, but there's still one remaining part that forms the basis as to why I say, what then do we need to do next as the next phase? And which I'll go straight to with regard to my manifesto and what is my key focus. The way we've grown as an institution, there are two key areas that, in line with the strategic plan, that needs to be implemented. One is strong governance structures in terms of policies, procedures, and more importantly, men and women, engineers, who can fill adequate the positions which we put in our organizational chart, to fill those positions and run with key roles in terms of administration of the institution. That is something very core in my heart. And as much as we'll have systems and processes, we need to have a solid team of managers who will then be part and parcel of the whole institutional structure and establishment. And having done that, we'll have led a major milestone. Then secondly, apart from that, is the issue of what I'd call the establishment of a school of engineers. Now, this is actually a personal vision I'd like to see within the institution. One of the key things that we've had the many graduate engineers clamor for is the issue of transitioning from GE to PEs. And the framework that currently exists and the challenges that have existed are not well defined. We have the graduate internship program, which is a first step and which we allowed EBK for. But how sustainable is that in the long term? So my personal vision, and this is what I'd love to champion in the next phase of my presidency as a first vice president, is bring stakeholders together and establish the School of Engineering, through which all graduates who go through our accredited programs in our universities can come and enjoy a period at the School of Engineering, and from there be able to graduate and get the necessary requisite experience to be able then to transition to a PE. So that is my key vision. And I believe once we have that as an institution, we will then be able to close the gap of having too many engineers who are graduates and then having more professional engineers. So that is really my key drive in terms of my manifesto. And for this, I've said we have to have anchor transformational leadership. Where we've reached as an institution, we need to have the institution to be stable, to be stabilized and anchored with all these systems, processes, and people in place. And thereafter, it doesn't matter who comes thereafter in terms of leadership of the institution, because it will be well structured, well grounded, and the transformation will take now a natural course of growth for the institution. One of the major challenges, I believe, is that once we ensure we are able to get that growth in membership through the School of Engineering, we can then focus clearly on improving the welfare of our engineers. And that is the heart of advocacy. But advocacy without a very good structure does not augur well. And that is why the institution as it is, the organization as it is, needs to be well established. Then from there, what I'm looking at in terms of welfare, engineering, and what I call engineering affirmative action, my focus in my manifesto basically touches on ensuring that we have within all state corporations, the leadership, policymakers, those are the board members, affirmative action whereby at least 70% of board members in any institution that have engineering as a core mandate, be it in infrastructure, whether it's in energy, whether it's in roads, whichever form of in water, as long as you have a board, 70% must come from the engineering fraternity. And that is, I believe, a cure to the current challenge we find that professionals who are not engineers, majority of whom take large, who are a greater number than the engineers within these boards. When it comes to engineering decision making in some of these institutions, it becomes a challenge. And that challenge can only be cured by having more engineers taking up those positions within those boards. And that goes all the way to what engineering within county governments. Because at the end of the day, once we have that done, we will then be able to have engineers taking up very active roles within the institution and within state corporations, and eventually private sector will follow suit. So in essence, that basically is my story in terms of what I envision. First and foremost, in summary, is the School of Engineering, which will work together closely with IEK and other stakeholders to ensure that that is established. Then secondly, have 100% transition of Gs to Ps through the same school. Then focus on having a very strong organizational structure where it is and governance structure for the institution, from which then we'll be able to promote the welfare. We'll be able to promote and advocate within counties. We'll be able to advocate on issues of general welfare of the engineers within Kenya. So in summary, that touches on the three areas: my background, my candidacy, what I've done, and my manifesto in terms of what I'd like to do as a first vice president. But in conclusion, what I'd like to say, part of my key achievements, having worked in different parts of Kenya, in Mombasa, I actively participated within Coast Branch, working and attending their meetings at Mombasa Club. And one of the key things I was privileged to have done for Coast Branch and Coast Engineers was be able to, was to be able to represent the Coast Engineers at the ASK show, and as a judge as IEK judge for that. In Western Kenya, I was also part of the activities of Western Kenya branch. I was privileged to host the Western Kenya branch at the Kenya Pipeline Depot, taking them through some mentorship. People earned CPD points, but more importantly, and I'd like to say this, more importantly, having participated in mentorship programs at Moi University on several occasions. And I've been able to mentor some students, and more importantly, help some get engaged with professional engineers and in engineering works. And I'm very proud of that work that I've been able to do for the Western branch of IEK. At the council, at least in terms of decision making and at the APJ, what I'm proud of is one key thing, especially with regard to the new website and the electronic registration. Some of our members are talking about how will we be able to do online work as a promise. I would like to tell all members that that has already been done. We issued, during this last council period, we were able to issue a tender to have a new membership management system, which we are hoping to launch in the coming days during the Africa Infrastructure, Kenya Infrastructure Scorecard session, whereby we'll be demonstrating our new website. Now, one of the best features that we have.
When is that?
That is between 12th and 13th of March. Actually, on Thursday and Friday.
All right.
We'll have actually a slot to demonstrate that particular, what people are saying they will do, we've already done. Online registration, where people will be able to download the forms and fill those forms online. That we've already done in our current membership management system, and people will be able to manage their own.
Engineer, why is it that when I first mentioned this thing in our forum in the social media Telegram, people were against the idea of how, and people were asking, how are you going to now have a proposer and a seconder?
The way the system has been designed is such that you'll be able to send it as an email. I'll just use an example like this particular link, right? Everybody has joined this meeting. Yes. I've chosen to join. So ideally, if you are my proposer and I've accepted to be part of this meeting, we've done it electronic. We're holding a meeting electronically. That is the basic concept in which an email will be sent to your proposer and seconder to accept or reject, and your form comes out printed with that. So ideally, that simulates in a way the kind of physical form that we require to have a proposer and a seconder. And more importantly, like the challenge whereby you find a proposer who is not paid up, you know, that those are some of the conditions for a seconder. You really would not want to fill your form, struggle to look for these people. And then at the end of the day, you discover just because of one small thing here, you don't get your form signed up. So that has already been taken care of in the mapping of the new membership management system. And then, so basically that is the kind of thing that was proposed during the previous, I think the AGM, where we were looking at how then can we improve services to members. And that was one of the key things.
All right. So in essence, a member who wants to be proposed and to be seconded
will select.
Will not need to have the name and the membership number all the time.
What they'll do, they'll select. You see, you have to select your proposer.
There will be a drop box.
Yeah, a drop box where you select the person and their number and their status will appear. And then your form, of course, will be able to progress in terms of workflow.
Okay, much appreciated. Now, I know you've spoken much. I want to ask in 4 minutes, so that I allow you to take a break and take some water because we're in a meeting before you came. I want you to tell us, why is the branches dormant. The only thing that has been vibrant is the new that has come in, the South Rift. The others have been
Yes.
dormant. They're not being had much. Is it the funding? The other thing
Oh,
is,
mhm.
why is the society, professional society, is talking about accredited programs in the universities, yet the society can have a way to accommodate these people who come from an accredited program for them to achieve the bridging and then proceed to the for the necessary level that is the regulator.
Okay. So the branches, contrary to the view that the branches are inactive, I think I'd like to correct that view, because personally I've been in both branches, in Western branch and I've been in Coast branch. So I can authoritatively say this as follows. Both branches, both Western and Coast in particular, have been active. The only branch that has not been active, which I must confess, is Central branch. Yeah, but that I'll explain. Now, why do we get the view that they are inactive? I'd like us to understand one thing. Coast branch has been very active in many activities within the coast region. And we've had various activities. Perhaps the only thing that that may be said compared to the new Central Rift branch is the fact about visibility. The populace in terms of members from Central Rift vis-a-vis Coast and Western, the composition and the membership is the very fact that anything new and any branch that is new, for example, they came with fresh ideas, they've come with a very clear agenda, which is progressive. Coast branch have participated in various events. They're among the first branches which have held PIPs. There's no other branch on record that have held PIPs. And that is kudos to them. Not much is said about it.
Engineer,
Not,
point of
yes.
correction, South Rift have hosted one at a very cheap price, 5,000 per person.
No, I'm talking about historically.
All right.
I'm
Okay.
talking historically.
Sure.
I'm bringing the history. You know, the reference point is vis-a-vis Central. You see, Central have actually raised the highest standard in terms of what the institution, a vibrant institution, should look like. And kudos to them. And so basing that as a reference, it's just the difference between the Western and Coast. Western branch, and I'd like to say this because I was there, they've had visits to some factories. In Zoya, for instance, they've had visits, industrial visits in Eldoret and in Kisumu. But what may have lacked, and that is why perhaps Central have not stand out, is Central Rift, is the issue of publicity of their events within the national platform, right? So that is why there's the impression that you feel, hey, there's nothing happening in Western or there's nothing happening in Coast. I can tell you those are very active branches. At KPA, and anybody who's in this meeting from either of the branches can attest to that fact, that those are not active. Those are very active branches, but in a quiet way. The only difference, and this is where Central Rift branch outshine every one of us, and this is something that we must be very proud of. Central Rift branch have set very high standards from the very onset with their clear vision in terms of publicity. They're the first to hold the presidential debates. They're the ones who have been very in terms of advocacy. They've been on the forefront. And I can tell you, during the time we had the formation of the Central branch, we held 2 meetings with the officials, one at Nairobi Club and one at Intercontinental, all the way from Nakuru, to just negotiate how can we have this put into the constitution, how can we have this at the SGM adopted, so on and so forth. I participated in all those forums with the leadership, with
All right,
Michael and
engineer.
his team.
Let me
So
give you a
basically,
breather. Let me give you a breather. I know you was give you